Do you struggle with finding the confidence to show up on video? In today's episode, Natasha Pierre of the Shine Online podcast is joining us to give us her best tips and tricks around video content creation. Natasha is going to share her insights on common mistakes she sees people make around video content. She's going to show us how to leverage existing content that we already have. And she's going to be talking about how important systems can be when it comes to not only content creation, but marketing strategy as a whole. It's a great episode, and I hope that you love it. Hey friends, welcome back to the show. I am pumped because this incredible guest that we have with us today, she and I have been like Instagram friends, internet friends for like a hot minute, and I'm like real excited to meet like face to face. I just can't believe it's taken this long. In fact, we just uncovered that we were in the same place at the same time back in 2020 and never met.
Crazy.
Wild. But we have the incredible Natasha Pierre. Natasha is the host of the Shine Online podcast and a video marketing coach for small businesses. She's got signature group programs and educational content where she helps you build your brand with confident marketing strategies. And she ultimately helps grow your business, community, and impact simultaneously, which, as you guys know, as a community builder and proponent of just all things community and marketing strategy, she is right up my alley, and I am a huge fan. So welcome to the show, Natasha. I'm so excited to have you here.
So excited to be here and to chat. I can't wait to get right into all the video things.
I know. I am selfishly super excited to talk with you all things video and learn from you and implement all the things you're going to tell us. I'd love to just like kick off by, if anybody in my audience doesn't know all about you yet, tell us a little bit about you and why video has become something that you're so passionate about educating on.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm a video marketing coach. So I help a lot of people implement video into their strategy and really focus on original video content, which I'm sure we'll touch on as we're chatting, but not necessarily the trends, but really creating an original video content strategy and making it something that's low lift. Because I think so many people tuning in, video feels like the highest lifting thing that they do, the hardest thing that they do. So really simplifying that. I also create my own content. I'm a creator myself. And then I started my journey as a social media manager, and I've gone back to my roots of done for you work with my agency, Shine Studios. So I'm also kind of behind the scenes in different content strategies for my clients. So kind of do a little bit of everything, but it really started all back in my college apartment. I was studying public relations. I was in marketing, and I had this really amazing internship, and she was in digital marketing, which I'd never heard about. She worked remotely all for herself, never had heard about that. And I just remember something she said to me that really stuck. She was like, if you want to build something, you can. And at the time, I had never even thought about or explored entrepreneurship. But as I went through college and I was getting ready to graduate, I had that like college crisis I think every college student has of like, what am I going to do for the rest of my life now that I'm about to graduate? And so I was thinking about all the things I had really loved from my internships experiences and like really what I wanted my life to look like post grad. And I thought back to what that mentor had told me in my first internship. And I remember I went to her, I sent her an email. I was like, I think I want to start my own social media management business. What do you think? She's like, go for it. I'm going to give you your first client. And so I was like, okay, it's happening. It's literally happening. This is like days before my 21st birthday. And so I literally was like building the business. I started with social media management, then led it to courses, education, speaking, all the things that I do now. But really along the way, I kind of nailed down that I really loved Instagram. And then even more so, I was like video, I love and am so passionate about. And I think it's because at the root of why I started in marketing is I love storytelling. And I found that video was just the best way to do that. I love audio. I love great copy. I love great design and visuals. Like I love all of that. But what's really amazing about video is it incorporates all of those elements. So you can really get a feel for a brand. You can see personality. You can see how a product moves. You can see what a coach would be like in real life when you're being coached by them. And so I think that's why I fell in love with video, and it felt like a non-negotiable that I really wanted every business to use. But so many businesses really struggle to incorporate it, especially with new surfaces and new platforms and video becoming even more important. So that's kind of how we got to where I am today and just like loving video and trying to help more people use it.
That's incredible. I feel like you are, well, to me at least, now I'm going to age myself, but I'm like, that is incredible to know what you want to do that early on and be that passionate about it. And I do think that there's elements of like things that I did when I was young that definitely are why I do what I do now. But I had to take the long way around. So I love that you were like, let's go, first client straight out of college. That's amazing. And I'm sure, I mean, hearing it all wrapped up in a beautiful bow, it sounds like an easy journey. I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure you had your ups and downs like everybody else. But I just love that you have been able to create something that has been so beautifully established for yourself from such an early stage of just being, I feel like that just speaks so much to your passion and to the heart behind what you do. And then to be able to just be really good at it is also an added bonus. So I love that you teach on video strategy, marketing, confidence in particular. I feel like actually confidence building is something that was one of those things that traveled with me no matter what my career was, whether it was teaching or photography with women, or, you know, now working as a coach and as a community builder and working on that confidence and speaking coach as well. The confidence piece is something that I was really passionate about because I lacked the confidence. I'd love to hear, like, how did that become something that was so important to you to instill in others?
Yeah, it's because I struggled with it big time, especially
Cool,
when I started my business. Yeah, like same, literally same. And I think that really speaks to like no one has it figured out. Like if you think you see people on video and that like they went to the secret class on how to be confident, like that didn't happen. Like all of us struggle. And I remember I still have it like in my story archives. Like I can remember when I filmed my first video for my Instagram. Keeping in mind, I almost didn't start my Instagram because I was like, I'm going to just be behind the scenes, going to do my social media manager thing. I don't need to be in my videos because, of course, I felt very insecure of the fact that I was young. I was like, people aren't going to take me seriously. People aren't going to want to work with me. I don't have any experience. Like, what do I have to add to the table? So I was like, well, I'm just not going to be visible. And so slowly but surely, I remember posting that first story and literally you can see me like holding my phone and like the phone is shaking. Like the phone is fully shaking because I was so nervous. And you could just tell like I wasn't confident, but I was doing it. And then I did it again. And then I did it again. So I think that's why I always tell people the most annoying tip, but the tip that's really going to help you be more confident in video is to practice. You have to work the muscle because right out of the gate, most of us are not going to feel confident talking to our phone and then posting it online for the internet to see. I mean, when we say it that way, we're like, yeah, it kind of makes sense, wouldn't feel confident doing that. So it really was realizing that. And the more and more I've worked with hundreds of different business owners. And yes, we talk about the strategy, the nitty gritty, but 80% of the time when I'm coaching my clients, it's on confidence of how they sound, what they're talking about, how they look, how their edits are. Like confidence is such a big part of video. So I think the sooner we recognize it, then we're able to build on it and improve on it instead of allowing it to prevent us from showing up. Because when I think about if I had never created my Instagram account or if I had never posted my first video on Instagram, my business would look completely different than to where it is now. And I attribute creating video for my own business to really helping me build more than just a business, really building a brand for myself that's been able to evolve as I've evolved and added different parts to my business. So I definitely struggled with confidence just like you. And it's been a journey. And sometimes I still film a video and I'm like, hated that, but I post it now instead of deleting it or drafting it.
No, same. Like literally the exact same thing. But it's funny. And I think hopefully our listeners can take something away from the fact that you initially were like, oh, I am so young. That's a point that makes me feel a little bit nervous. I was like, I'm way too old to be doing this. Like everybody who's on the internet is much younger than me. Like I'm already past that point in my life. To be fair, I was also a high school teacher when I started my business. And let's be real, high school girls are terrifying when they're in high school and they're not the nicest sometimes. They don't mean to be poor things. Like I get it. I love them to death and I still love working with that age group. But because of that, I had the opposite. So I think if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, well, it's because I'm old. It's because I'm this. It's because I feel this way about my appearance. I actually, ironically, as a coach for speakers, probably like 85% of what I end up doing is a lot of confidence mindset coaching within our work together with my clients. And so I think that's just a nice little tie-in that that speaks volumes of the importance of doing it anyway. Like you said, like you might hate it, but post it anyway, right? But I love chatting about the confidence part, doing like a little pivot and talking about the marketing strategy part. I'd love to hear from your perspective as somebody who works on this day in and day out, what are some of the mistakes that you see, like the places people are missing the mark on content creation nowadays? Like, no, I sound like I'm 85. In these days, what are people missing the mark on?
I mean, things move so fast, right? You feel like what worked last year, it's like now totally out of date, totally in a
100%.
different era.
Yeah.
So I totally get that. I think to the point I already mentioned, like trying to make it perfect. And I think people do this with the best intention of wanting to represent their brands well on video.
Yeah.
But I think I always get so many questions of like, what's the perfect edit? Like, where should I put this? And how should I place that? And how do I do edits like this? Or like, do I need a better setup? Like, do I need my office to look cooler or my house to look cooler, or like how I'm actually saying it on camera? And even just small things like I want to be able to post daily or I won't post at all. And so I think it's keeping this caliber of like, if it's not perfect, I'm not going to do the video content, when in fact, I think there's so much power in imperfect video content. And I actually think so many creators and brands are actually really leaning into that. And that what's what I would encourage more people to do. It's like, what if your talking videos were a little bit more casual? What if you filmed a video clip or B-roll of you doing something that you're already doing in your day and you can be in your comfy work from home clothes? Like, what if we can kind of reframe those things? Because for most of us, it's what society has told us. It's what being in like a 9-to-5 corporate job told us, is that you have to be professional to be visible and to represent your brand well. So I definitely think that's a really, really big one. I think the other thing is honestly not testing a lot of different formats. So I think when we think of video, a lot of people will lean into like what really works for them or what really works for other people. But I actually think there's a lot of power in using a lot of different types of video. And that can be just on a platform like Instagram, of like making sure you're using stories and lives, but also using different types of reels. But even if you're just on a platform like TikTok, for example, like do the talking videos, do the very simple text overlay videos with B-roll, like do the videos where you're like telling a visual story with a voiceover and different video clips. So I think it's slowly but surely adding in variety to your content. But probably the last thing that I see most people making a mistake with is not focusing on the hook. And I know that's what like everyone talks about, the hook, you know, you need a hook, you know, it's important, but I often think we don't like dive into what that really means. And essentially like the hook is that first part of your video that tells people why they should care, what it's going to be about, and why they should continue spending time on that piece of content. And as there's more and more video content to consume, if you spend that first few seconds like kind of just rambling or not getting to the point or pausing or not saying things in the most concise way, that is the difference between getting engagement, getting reach, like getting the result that you want with your video. And so I think just making sure you're really focusing on like the structure of your video overall is going to make the biggest difference. Most people already know what they should be creating about, and it's not the topics, it's not the what, it's not the idea. It's more so about making sure it's in the right format. So those are probably like the 3 mistakes that I see a lot of people make.
Oh my gosh, there's so much I want to dive into on that. Like so many things.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's go. First off, I love all of that advice. I think it's incredible. I think that there's like maybe a sense of overwhelm that people feel when they feel like they should utilize all the different formats. And maybe I liked your example of it's all or nothing, right? Like it shouldn't be all or nothing, but that's how people think about it, is if I can't do it every day, I'm just not going to do it. Or if it's not perfect, I'm just not going to do it. So I really love that you encourage people to slowly, I like that you said like slowly but surely try out the different formats. Like you don't have to do it all today. Do you have a suggestion of where people should start, or is it just kind of where it feels comfortable?
Yes, definitely where you feel the most comfortable, because if you're already consuming or maybe slightly creating on that, it's going to make it so much easier for you to see results and success with it. If you hate TikTok, don't use TikTok. For example, for me, I know I talk about short form video. I love short form video, and I like TikTok too much. So I had to delete it, and I have been off it for 2 years because it was just like so addictive for me. And so even though I create TikTok for clients, I coach my clients on using it, I'm not on TikTok because that doesn't feel good for me. So I
Mm.
think it's really understanding we have so many options. So pick what feels good in terms of where are your people? What type of content do you want to be creating with videos? Like what gets you excited? What lights you up? Maybe outside of your niche and industry is a really great place to get that inspiration. And
Yeah.
then start with that, knowing you can always grow and add from there.
I love that advice. And I think how freeing to hear from an expert in this field that if you don't feel good about a platform, you can set that boundary and let that like honor that boundary for yourself. And that's really impressive, by the way, because I'm the first to admit I spend way too much time on TikTok. I'm not even creating on TikTok. I'm just consuming and it's
Yes. Oh,
terrible.
it's so tough. It's so tough. And I think that's like maybe a little bonus tip for us to kind of mention because it's something I'm so passionate about is I think
Mhm.
when we have healthy boundaries with video and social media, it
Yeah.
makes showing up so much easier. I never post and create on weekends. I don't post and create outside of my office hours. I very much
Mhm.
think of it as something that I'm doing for my business within my business hours.
Yeah.
And even a common thing that I hear, especially from like introverts, I'm a fellow introvert, and people are like, I'm an introvert, like my energy, it's like too much. And, or people say, like, I really love my privacy. Like, I don't want to be posting all my business on social media. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
don't. Like, we don't
Don't.
have to do that. Like, honestly, I think it's actually more important now than ever that you should have privacy, that you shouldn't share
Yeah.
everything, that you should have
Mhm.
boundaries, that you make sure you understand what those limits are. Because I
Yeah.
think a lot of people resent something like video because it feels like it's like you have to put everything on the table at all times and that
Yeah.
it never turns off. So I think that's an important thing to like really keep those boundaries and help allows you to have a really healthy relationship with creating content.
Oh my gosh. I just feel like people are probably taking this deep breath of relief just hearing you say that. So thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And yeah, I feel like sometimes I get in my head about it too, like, okay, I can pick and choose what I want to share and I can keep a lot private. And it's hard because of the whole parasocial relationships and the way people really feel like they know everything about you. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I would love to dive into one more thing that you had mentioned before, like moving things along. I love that you brought up a lot of people talking about the hook, but not quite grasping like, what is that hook? And I know that you said I'm probably going to misquote you, but like why people should watch it. Like, can you give us maybe an example or two of a good quality hook?
Yeah, definitely. I think one other thing I wanted to add here, I actually did an entire podcast episode on this because I thought it was just like
Amazing.
such an helpful thing to break down. So maybe we can
Yes.
share that with everyone listening. But there's actually three different types of hooks, which I think is something like no one talks about. Is we're like,
Yeah.
oh, you need a hook, but like hooks can look a lot of different ways. So it can be what you're saying in your video. So let's just use an example of me creating a video about hooks, just so we make it very meta and
I
very
love it. I
confusing.
love it.
So this could literally be me going to camera and saying like, you need a hook, but you didn't know that there was three different types of hooks. Let's break them down. That would be like an example of me saying to camera a hook. Another example would be actually the text that you're adding onto your video. So I know I
Mm.
mentioned edits, and I actually think not a lot of edits are very necessary, but one edit that I think is so important is text, which is very simple. And all
Yeah.
of us are pretty adept at knowing how to do that, even if it's natively within the app. So
Mhm.
the text can be the entire video, right? Maybe you're doing B-roll where you're listing out three different hooks. This could be when I'm talking about, three different things you need to know about your hooks. This could be me actually adding text to support what I'm saying as well.
Okay.
Or it can be for like main points and like making your video more engaging and more and increasing that retention throughout it. And that's kind of like the third type of hook is visual elements. And
Mm.
from there, you can kind of pick and choose what makes sense. Is it the timing of the B-roll that you're adding? Is it that you're using a green screen in the background? Is it that maybe while you're talking, you're like sitting down or walking? Like that is actually a visual hook because it's like getting people engaged and getting people interested versus us like sitting at our
Yeah.
desk, like not moving. Like, so hopefully I feel like that kind of maybe went over a few different examples of like how you can like not only have a hook in your video, but all the different ways that it can look.
Oh my gosh, that was so helpful. I feel like I already had my wheels turning on that. And I also was like, okay, good. I do use text, so that's good. I did something right.
Yes.
Amazing. Okay, that was really helpful. And we will definitely link that episode. I'll get that information from you. We'll link it in the show notes for sure, because I will be hopping over to listen to that as well. Okay, I would love to hear, now that we've kind of heard about some of the mistakes and some clarifications around like some of those mistakes that you've seen, what are, and the hook may be one of them, but what are like the top things that you would recommend people have in mind or consider as they're starting to implement using more video in their marketing and content strategies?
Yes. Oh, love this question. So the first three that come to mind, the first is actually repurposing. And so I think most of us are already creating content. Like you're already creating content if it's video or not video. And so instead of being so obsessed with thinking of new video ideas or going on your Reels tab and looking for a trend to use, like go into what you already created. Maybe you're doing coaching calls. Maybe it's like feedback you've gotten from clients. Maybe it's like questions you're getting. Maybe it's emails you've written. Maybe it's like carousel posts you've created or captions or stories that worked really well. Pull from those things for your next video idea. And we've already talked about different formats you can use and different things like that. And then just like apply it to that. But I feel like that makes adding in more videos so much easier. For example, whenever I'm advising people on creating like really great launch content, even when we're doing it for our clients, we almost are never starting from scratch. We're going to sales pages, we're going to emails, we're going into messaging, we're going into other past launch materials to create new video content. So I think when we remove the pressure of having to always start from scratch, it makes adding in video a lot easier. And you kind of already have the proof of like, this really resonated already. This already performed, this already landed. And I just need to add in that dynamic element of video on top of it. So that would definitely be the first thing I would recommend. The second would be one that we kind of already touched on today, and it's like leaning into what feels the lowest lift for you. If you're a coach that loves coaching and talking, just do talking videos. If you love writing and like writing is your jam, just try like text overlay, like copy focused videos. If you love the edits and the creative process, like really lean into that when you're creating video content. But start with what feels the lowest lift and the most natural for you. And then from there, you can add in different formats or take that one idea and then say, oh, well, I already did it text overlay. So now I'm going to turn that into a script and say it to camera. That's something that's actually like kind of using both tips together is like, I often repurpose my videos for other videos. Like I'm almost never starting from scratch with my ideas. And it really allows our audience to like really get that information to sink in, keeping in mind they might not have even seen it the first time, knowing how algorithms work and everything like that. But really the last tip, and this is like where I get just like so nerdy and it's where I'm just like so passionate about, and it is systems. Because if you're always hoping that creativity and motivation is going to keep you consistent with video, it's not going to work like that. I promise you it won't. And so there's a few things, there's like two systems that I always recommend all of my clients have. The one is making video a habit. So what are things that you're already doing in your week, in your day that you can add video on top of? A few examples, let's say Mondays are your meeting days. Set a meeting on your calendar to go live for 20 minutes. Let's say every morning you like to make your morning beverage. I know I love to make my morning matcha. Let's have that be an opportunity that you film a video clip that you could use for a future video, that you could use for your story for the day. Another example is maybe after you get off a podcast interview, or maybe you're doing virtual speaking, or maybe you're coaching your clients or something where you're like talking and kind of like in that mode. I love to set aside some time afterwards to film talking videos, because chances are there's things you talked about, questions you got, topics that came up that would be great video ideas, and it's already fresh in your brain. So just like knock it out while you're already doing it. So when we think about the things we're already doing in our day and adding video on top of it, you'll have the really great problem of having too much B-roll and having too much videos to already use versus not having enough. And kind of the opposite system of that is having a content day. I think it's so easy for us to set days for our admin tasks and our client tasks and all those types of things. But I find marketing is often so neglected, and we kind of just smush it into the time we have extra, which is often the times we don't really want to do it. And so I recommend everyone have some type of reoccurring content day. It can be 30 minutes. It can be an hour. It can be an entire day. It can be every week. It can be an entire week. Like you can figure out what works best for you. But On that content day, you're only doing content tasks. You're recording, you're outlining, you're brainstorming, you're editing, you're creating. We're not answering emails. We're not helping our clients. We're not doing the things that can distract us from creating great video content. So I find that if you implement both of those systems, or at least one of them, it makes creating video content so much easier, and you're not relying on the motivation or the fresh idea or feeling really excited about your video content, because long term, which is really what we're aiming for, that's just not going to be sustainable. So hopefully those 3 tips can be supportive for people listening.
I mean, hell yeah, that was good. I'm over here like, okay, damn, she's on fire. I love what you said about, first and foremost, repurposing. I feel like you hear a lot of people use the word repurpose or repurposing when it comes to content, but I have very rarely, if ever, heard somebody, maybe once, but I don't even remember, talking about pulling it from coaching sessions you've done, your sales page. Like when I hear repurposing, most often I think people are like, well, go back on your Instagram and what did you post? I love that you gave something for those people who are out there who are thinking, well, I don't post. That's the whole problem.
Right.
But you do so much in your business that of course you would pull from that, right? Like, are there any other examples you can think? I mean, I feel like you gave so many, but maybe for the person who's really just fresh to being like, okay, I'm going to get on video. What's the easiest place they can pull from like today?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's, so many. I mean, I think there's the things you're doing in your business.
Yes.
So if you've created curriculum, you're working with clients, like you have a process, you have a system, even if it's something you just do for yourself. So I think the things you're doing in your business is one side. The other side is, like I said, content you're already creating, even if it's blog posts, even if it's like your script for a podcast interview, like taking those existing pieces of content, even though they're not video. But kind of a little tip that I think everyone that maybe works with clients can do that has been really helpful for me is whenever I'm onboarding a new client, I ask them what piece of content impacted their decision to work with me. But I also ask them, like, what are their goals as it pertains to video content? What are your top 3 struggles as it pertains to video content? And from there, goal mines for creating more content. So I think if anyone can add that to their client process, if they work with clients, that can be for courses, programs, like it can be for a little bit of everything, but we always do that for anything that we're adding new people to.
I love that. As you were saying that, I was like, even an inquiry email in general, just like people expressing where they're at and then being able to answer that.
What questions are they asking?
Yeah. Amazing. Okay. I thought of like a few rapid fire questions. If you're down, this is like,
let's do it.
I actually don't do this on the show. You're my first. No, let's go. But because you gave so much food for thought that I was like, okay, I'm just going to ask her like a bunch of questions really fast. These are things that like, some of them are for me. Some of them are for like my coaching clients that ask me these things. And I kind of just want to compare our answers and be like, am I doing this right? No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So number 1, you did share in your systems that you should have a content day, right? But like, how often, in your opinion, do you think that should be? I know some people say like quarterly is enough, monthly is enough.
Yes. I like weekly. And the reason why is because I think it makes sure you're prioritizing it just like all the other things you're doing weekly in your calendar. So for me, I always like to have like Tuesday blocked off as my content day, and I do all the content things. And I think for me, I really have found that this has helped me so much with creating more content. And so, that's what personally works really well for me is weekly, having a time period. And I find for most of my clients as well, because one thing that I didn't mention with content days that is really important is you don't want to just say, I'm going to batch a month of reels. Great intentions, great goal, but not specific enough. I want your content to be, I'm outlining 3 podcast episodes. I'm brainstorming 30 days of videos, just brainstorming. I'm not creating them. I'm filming my next 5 videos. I'm editing those next 5 videos. I'm scheduling and doing the covers. Like we all know there's so much that goes into just little pieces of content. And so I think when you really break down your content day, it makes it where you're like, wow, I actually have a lot of great things I can work on that can help this feel a lot easier versus like, I know a lot of us have been guilty of just like in the moment posting and editing and creating something on Instagram that just feels so like chaotic sometimes and sometimes in a fun way, but not often in a supportive way.
No, literally. I feel personally attacked. Also, you answered the second rapid fire question, which is amazing.
I was going to say, I didn't rapid fire answer. I did not rapid fire answer.
But I loved it because it actually saved me from having to ask. I was going to say, how specific should you be in planning it?
Yes.
And I love that you said weekly, because if any of you guys have taken Scheduling for Success out of my product shop, I teach on having theme days. And so one of those theme days would be content. And I think anything you want consistency in should be built into your routine. It should become habit, like you said.
So good.
And habit is hard to build especially if you're an ADHD girly like me. So we're working on it.
Yes.
I'd love to know, I get this question all the time, and I struggle with this as well. Let's say you go to, so I work with a lot of speakers. I am a speaker. You're a speaker.
Yes.
You go to an event. You're like, I have missed the mark on posting this recap. It's been months. I'm just not going to do it.
Oh.
Has the time passed?
No, the time has never passed. The time has never passed.
And second rapid fire to that rapid fire is how many times can you utilize the same event in your social media?
Great question. I think, this is like, I love talking about speakers and like content, because like video is the best type of content you can be creating if you want to do more speaking.
100% agree.
Shows you speaking.
Yes.
So I think the first thing is, we all know when you are getting on a virtual or in-person stage, the energy and capacity required. So whenever I'm doing that, I pre-plan what type of content I want to get out of it, because I know when I'm in the moment, I'm not thinking about content, and I'm like going to go take a nap and like be in my pajamas and eating takeout in a room. You know what I mean? Like afterwards. Yeah. And so I think that's the first thing, is set the intention for whatever event you're at or you're speaking at. What do you want to capture? What do you want to highlight? And so do you want to do like a day in the life vlog? Do you want to do like a carousel dump? Do you want to get like actual speaker footage and then make a plan for that ahead of time? So I think that's a really important thing, because then it's going to make a lot easier posting it afterwards. I also like to have it as like a follow-up, like a little task on my calendar of like, make sure we post the follow-up, because as you mentioned, like it just doesn't get posted all the time. So I think it goes back to those systems, right? Is that like, if we know it's important and we want to prioritize it, set the intention before, but also with the follow through of creating it. But in terms of how, like, you can absolutely post it after the fact. And I actually really recommend that. I know for a speaking event I had this year, I was really intentional about like, I wanted to have video footage of me speaking, and I wanted to use that for reels. And so I didn't have it right after I was speaking, even though I did post like some recaps and things like that. But I know I'm going to continue posting that through the year. And it really allows that to be an important pillar in the content you're creating. So people are constantly thinking of you as a speaker because we're seeing it in your content. So in fact, just posting it after the event, like that's just one part of what I think is really the value that you can get from your speaker content. So that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, not my head like about to fall off from nodding so hard. I'm like, yes. Yeah. And I believe that there's no timeline on that. Like, are you still a speaker? Cool. You should still be posted. Like, use what you got, and maybe you want to rethink the way the recap is structured, or maybe you don't do the exact same plan you had if it's been a long time, but the content is still great. Like, let's still post it. Okay. Next rapid fire. What is your favorite content to create and post?
Ooh, such a great question. I feel like right now I've really been loving talking videos. In the past, I've really been like loving the B-roll and text overlay style, but I really love talking videos. And I think it's because they get a rep for being way harder than other pieces of content. But I actually find that it can feel a little bit easier for me to share my thoughts and perspectives on things and kind of get creative. I'm like, oh, am I like sitting on the couch, or like, am I using my little mic, or like kind of getting creative with like when and where I'm doing it. So that's been actually my favorite type of video content to create, and I've really enjoyed it.
I love that. And then this is the last one, and it's a follow-up rapid fire, is what is your best performing content right now?
Ooh, great question. I would say it's probably what I call like storytelling videos. So where I'm using B-roll or visuals to kind of like share a process or share a story or share something like that. And then I have like a voiceover element that is kind of explaining or walking people through that. I found that to be what's really been resonating a lot with my audience. And I will give kind of like a bonus to that, is what's working well for my clients is actually signature series. So for almost all of our clients, at least when we get started with them, but usually throughout the time working together, we always go back to a signature series, which is exactly as it sounds. Think like we're making your Netflix show. There's multiple episodes that are building on each other, keeping people interested, keeping people engaged. This is great for reaching new people, but it's great for engaging your current audience and tying it into whatever your goal or objective is. If you want to do more speaker content, create a series around like what your signature talk is. Like if you want to sell your offer, like create it around that. So we found that's been like really, really helpful. An example, which I know probably isn't the niche most people are in here, is one of our clients. She does education for modern calligraphy. So she people modern calligraphy. She already has a pretty big audience, so this number is going to seem way bigger than probably for most of us. But we did a series, and her top performing content from that month was that series on how to get started with calligraphy. And one of the videos had like over 2,000 saves, which is like insanity. And like I said, not a standard most of us should ever be like aiming towards. But I think it really shows like when you use a series where every episode is very specific. And for example, she could do a video where it's like, here's the 4 things you need to learn to start making calligraphy. And that would be a perfectly great piece of content. But instead, to break it up into individual episodes, you're actually doing your audience a favor because it's making it so much easier to digest. And it keeps that excitement of like, we're staying along for the ride. It's like how they dropped the Bridgerton episodes for the latest season. It's like everyone was waiting for part 2 because they like made us wait for it, right? And so you can kind of have that same effect for your video content. So I know that was more than you asked for, but hopefully gave another idea people can create.
I love when I get more than I asked for. That was awesome. No, that's super helpful. And I love just the fact that your favorite content to create is different than your best performing content right now. And which is also different than your client's best performing content right now. Yeah. So I think that that's also just like food for thought for people and for myself to think, okay, what's working for one person doesn't have to work for the other. And there is room for all of it, which I think is great, and room to play and to experiment. So
definitely.
That's amazing. And then we always have to wrap up my podcast with your unpopular opinion around the topic. So I'm sure you have many because of all your years in this field, but if you want to share like your top unpopular opinion.
Oh, yes. Oh, I have so many. But the one that just like I feel like everyone needs to hear as it relates to this conversation is that like trends aren't the easiest type of content to create. If you want to add trends in your strategy, it feels fun, you feel creative, like go for it. But I promise you, like doing the research, figuring out how to put your own spin on it, it almost reinforces that you aren't the expert at what your video should look and feel like. So you kind of become dependent on that. So I think with a big theme we've talked about is like leaning into your expertise, leaning into your voice, like playing around with different formats. I think trends really limit you on what you can do with that. So that's probably like my hot take is that like, and also that trends aren't the best way to grow with reels right now or any type of short form video content. It's like, there's so many other ways and even more ways to grow now with reels than ever before that like trends aren't required to do that.
That is honestly such a relief for someone like me who I call myself like a slow processor. I'm just like slow to process everything. I overthink a lot. And so it's nice to know because trends always make me feel really anxious. So I've never been able to hop on them fast enough.
Well, because you're chasing them, right? You have to post them timely. You have to create them. You have to see what everyone else is doing. Like all of those elements makes it where it just like cannot feel really great for a lot of us.
No, and then I just don't do it. So
yeah. Exactly.
I love it. This was so helpful. I know personally for me, so I can only imagine how helpful it would be for everybody listening. So I hope everybody will go and obviously follow along with Natasha if you're not already, which you probably are because she's just a queen. And what is like, do you have anything coming down the pipeline where people can work with you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the best place to start is definitely like my 3 free day challenge. So it talks about repurposing. It talks about B-roll. It talks about simple edits, a lot of the things we mentioned today. So I think that's like a really great place to like start and kind of focus on, especially over the summer. It's like kind of the perfect way to like kickstart some video content. But my socials is definitely like the best place to connect over at Shine with Natasha. That's on YouTube as well. And then the Shine Online podcast has some deep dives on the topics we talked about today.
That's incredible. I know I'm going to go check out that 3-day challenge. I literally sound like this is scripted or sponsored. She did not ask me to say that, y'all. I'm actually going to go do it.
Tell them about the challenge.
I know. She's like, get it. She's like, don't forget what I said. But no, really, I'm truly going to go check it out because your girl needs a little more consistency in her content, and I will be the first to admit that. So thank you so much, Natasha. This was awesome.
Yes, thank you.